Lots to talk about in today's episode. NASCAR continues to put restrictions on Cup Series drivers. Dale Jr. says he still plans on racing this next weekend at Darlington. And then we have some Matt DiBenedetto silly season rumors and speculation to talk about. Gonna be a full episode. How's it going, you guys? My name is Eric and welcome back to Out of the Groove, once again in the car, hopefully for the last time. Before I jump into this actual episode, I want to get some housekeeping things out of the way. Just some updates with me, my channel. I posted a little bit about this on Twitter, and I think I actually posted to my community tab, so you might have already read it. That's kind of the gist of it right there. But yeah, summer's almost over and I'm still a college student, so I'm still doing college related things, which means the semester is about to pick back up for me. So for the next 4 months or so, I'm gonna be very busy outside of YouTube. I actually don't live in Texas anymore. For the next few months, I'm living in Florida. Not gonna go into too much detail there just yet, but I'm actually on the East Coast now, so gotta get used to that, gotta get used to a lot of different things, moving into new places and everything, figuring out how I'm gonna do the show, where I'm gonna do the show. Might be moving out of the groove into kind of an office for a short time, which means hopefully I can get like a physical set again. I don't have to do the green screen. I can, put some die casts on display, make it look more like a real studio setup. But with that all being said, the channel, the shows and everything, not really gonna change that much. Out of the Groove, I'm still gonna do a few episodes a week. Just might look a little bit different, but it's still gonna be the exact same show. One thing I did mention on Twitter yesterday, the NASCAR Weekly podcast, which I've been a part of for about a year and a half now. Unfortunately, the next 4 months or so, 3 months, I'm not gonna be a part of that show as frequently. I'll still try to be on as a guest, as a panelist as often as I can, but Darian, Jarrett, Danny, all of them do an amazing show. It's literally just because I have a lot of commitments now outside of YouTube, and my Wednesday evenings are often not gonna be free anymore. But that being said, I plan on being back and doing that show much more frequently at the start of 2020. So definitely keep supporting them because they have some awesome shows lined up, I know. So keep watching their stuff. And yeah, with that being said, that's kind of housekeeping updates with me right now. It's kind of crazy, but let's talk about NASCAR. We've got a lot of stuff to discuss today. We'll start with Dale Earnhardt Jr. Good old Dale. If you recall, last week before the Bristol race, he was involved in a very scary plane incident. When flying into Tennessee, his private jet actually bounced off the runway and caught fire, crashed. But luckily, somehow, by some miracle, Dale Earnhardt Jr., his wife, his young daughter, even the family dog, the pilots, everybody was safe. Nobody was severely injured in that accident, so that was amazing. But as a result, Dale Jr. took the weekend off. He did not broadcast the race with NBC, and so then speculation started to arise about whether or not he would race in the Xfinity race at Darlington next week, which he's been scheduled to do for a while now. A fan expressed on Twitter this very concern, and Dale Earnhardt Jr. tweeted this in response. "Yes, I plan on driving still. My lower back is bruised up real bad. Lots of swelling, and I just need that to go down and the pain to chill out. I've been treating the area every day solely to get well to race. I have a plan B, but hope not to use it." So as you can see right there, Dale Earnhardt Jr. does plan to race at Darlington. Remember, he's running that cool throwback, number 8, throwback to an old Dale Sr. paint scheme. Pretty cool. Hopefully we get to see Dale Jr. actually behind the wheel of that awesome paint scheme. And from the sounds of it, he is still planning on racing, but he does have a plan B, which he hopes not to use. Not sure what that plan B is, but hopefully Dale Earnhardt Jr. and his lower back and that injury, the bruising and everything, hopefully that is not too serious, and hopefully we get to see him back in a car back, at Darlington next week. I kind of like that he's doing this once a year. He just kind of comes back and does a fun Xfinity race. He raced Richmond last year, actually led laps. We thought he might win the race, and then now he's come back this year for Darlington, the challenging racetrack that might play right into his hands. After how well he performed at Richmond last year in his one Xfinity start, I'm really excited to see Dale Jr. back behind the wheel of an Xfinity car. He might just surprise us all and go out and win another one, so let's see what he does. Now, before we get to the fun, silly season speculation and rumors that I've been hearing about Matt DiBenedetto's future, we gotta talk about some just kind of general NASCAR rules and updates. Now, yesterday, NASCAR revealed new eligibility rules for the Trucks and Xfinity Series for 2020. And in a nutshell, they basically put more restrictions on Cup Series drivers racing in lower series. Next year, drivers with 3 years or more of full-time Cup Series experience will only be allowed to race 5 times in the Xfinity Series and 5 times in the Trucks, compared to this year where drivers with 5 or more years of eligibility were able to do 7 Xfinity races. So mainly here, they've kept the Truck Series number the same, but they've lessened the number of Xfinity races Cup guys can run from 7 down to 5. And now Cup drivers are still not going to be allowed to race in any of the Xfinity or Truck playoff races. They're also not going to be able to run any of the Dash for Cash races in the Xfinity Series or the Triple Truck Challenge races in the Truck Series. So Cup guys are now pretty darn limited as to what races they actually can run next year in the lower series, which I think a lot of fans will be happy about. I think generally speaking, the last several years, fans have been very vocal about how much they dislike Cup guys coming down into the Xfinity and Truck Series. And credit NASCAR, they have listened. They've consistently added more and more more rules to further and further restrict them the last several years. And I think most fans appreciate that because it gives the Xfinity Series, it gives the Truck Series their own identity. If you see Kyle Busch moving down the trucks in Xfinity Series and just dominating every week, it just doesn't feel like you're watching a truck or Xfinity race. It just feels like you're watching the Kyle Busch show. I will say personally, in my opinion, the Truck Series especially has been more entertaining, I think, the last couple of years than it was before. Now that we're not just watching the Kyle Busch show every Friday night, we're actually starting to learn about some of these Truck Series regulars and watch them compete for wins. We watched Brett Moffitt last year, that storyline, him coming out of nowhere to win the championship, or this year with Ross Chastain. If Kyle Busch was out there dominating every week, we probably wouldn't be talking about Ross Chastain. He would not have the platform he has right now. So I really do like this rule in that it is giving the Xfinity and the Truck Series their own specific identity. It doesn't just look like Cup Series light out there. So I will credit NASCAR. I think this has been a good decision that they've been making. I wasn't sure about it at first because when you ask Christopher Bell, when you ask Justin Allgaier, or you ask Noah Gragson, or any of these guys, do you like seeing Cup drivers in the Xfinity and Truck Series? Most of them say yes, because they like the challenge. They like being able to compare themselves to Kyle Busch or Kevin Harvick or Joey Logano or whoever it is. They like knowing where they stack up against the people they're going to be racing against in a few years. And I kind of agree with that too, because we've seen in recent years, as Cup drivers are more and more limited as to how many Xfinity and truck races they can run, I feel like we've seen some kind of false alarms in a way. We've talked about how this newest crop of young drivers isn't as good as the last generation's early crop of young drivers. In the last generation, when guys like Kevin Harvick, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Matt Kenseth, Tony Stewart, Jimmy Johnson, etc., Ryan Newman, when they all came into the Cup Series, they immediately started winning and started contending for championships. We look at today, the young drivers of today, like the Chase Elliott's, the Kyle Larsons, and those are probably the two best we have so far, Austin Dillon's, Eric Jones, Ryan Blaney. These guys aren't contending for championships, and in many cases aren't even contending for wins regularly. So the newest crop of young drivers, this generation of young drivers, are not nearly as good as the last generation of young drivers, and part of that could be because they're not having to face as tough of competition in the Trucks and Xfinity Series. So if we eventually completely get rid of Cup guys racing in the Trucks and Xfinity Series, how are we really supposed to tell if Christopher Bell, if Tyler Reddick, are they really that good? Are they really that good? Because when Kyle Busch goes down there, he usually beats them. They usually do not beat Kyle Busch. So how good are they really? It's hard to say, and I worry that will be kind of the trend going forward if we completely eradicate Cup drivers from being eligible in the lower series. I think where we're at right now with 5 races next year, 5 trucks, 5 Xfinity races, I think that's a perfect number. I don't want to see it reduced too much from there, but I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Also, one last bit on this topic, NASCAR also revealed that the Xfinity field size next year is going to be shrunk down to 36 cars. There will be 31 cars that race in based on qualifying time, 4 provisional spots based on the rule book, and then 1 for past champions provisional. So 36 cars in Xfinity for next year. Gonna be interesting. So now the last thing I want to talk about in this episode is Matt DiBenedetto. He's won over the hearts of thousands over the last week with the announcement, the heartbreaking announcement last week that Leavine Family Racing was going to let him go, mainly for business purposes. For him to then go out at Bristol Motor Speedway and run the race of his life, lead laps, lose it by just a matter of laps. I think it's safe to say that Matt DiBenedetto has won over the hearts of many NASCAR faithfuls. But the problem is, for 2020, Matt DiBenedetto does not currently have a ride lined up. So the question has to be asked, where will DiBenedetto end up? Because he's got to end up somewhere, right? I mean, Denny Hamlin after Bristol this weekend had some pretty strong words when it comes to team owners signing DiBenedetto for next year. Hamlin said, there's many car owners that finance cars that are on the racetrack, good teams. They got to step up and take a chance on somebody they really believe in. That, or they can continue to run 15th. And he was referring to Matt DiBenedetto here as the guy that they should be taking a chance on. So with silly season kind of in full effect now, let's talk about some of the most likely options I think Matt DiBenedetto could find for next season. So let's start with this one, which I think might be the most legitimate. You guys might think I'm crazy here, but I think this might be the most legitimate option. But, let me know what you guys think. I've heard a rumor going around that Matt DiBenedetto might go down and spend next year in the Xfinity Series for Joe Gibbs Racing. With Jeffrey Earnhardt now parting ways with the team and Christopher Bell likely going to end up in Cup Series next year, there's probably an open spot down there for Matt DiBenedetto if Joe Gibbs wants to put him in one of those cars. Now, the rumor I've heard is that he would spend 1 year down in Xfinity, and then in 2021, when the Generation 7 car is introduced, Leavine Family Racing might open up a second car, and Matt DiBenedetto could actually return to that race team. And at that point, since Bell will likely be in the other Levine car, it'll be a lot more of a Furniture Row Joe Gibbs relationship, where I think the two Levine family racing cars will be a lot more closely aligned with Joe Gibbs Racing. They'll be just as competitive probably in many ways. So that would be a really good ride that DiBenedetto and Christopher Bell would be, they'd be running over there at Levine. So that's the rumor I've heard. DiBenedetto goes down to Xfinity for 1 year with Gibbs, stays there, and then comes back up in 2021, and maybe the 95 is Bell, maybe like the 59 is DiBenedetto, and then they got the 4 Gibbs cars over there. That would be the Cup Series roster for Toyota in 2021, the first year of the Gen 7 car. You guys might think I'm crazy. I know Matt DiBenedetto probably does not want to go down to the Xfinity Series. That means less screen time, probably a pay cut, less publicity. But keep in mind how DiBenedetto has behaved in the last week since he learned that he was going to be released from Levine. He's been nothing but thankful to the race team, to Toyota, to Joe Gibbs, to Bob Levine, to everybody for giving him these opportunities. And, you know, this very weekend at Road America in the Xfinity Series, he will be racing for Joe Gibbs in that 18 car. DiBenedetto does not want to burn any bridges here, and for that reason, I think that this could be a very possible deal that works out here. Toyota does not want to let Christopher Bell get away, so they have to bring him into the Cup Series in 2020, and that just might force DiBenedetto to take kind of an off year from the Cup Series, and then hopefully maybe they can bring him back. I think that's a plan that Toyota and everybody's looking at. That's what I think is the most likely, but it also might be the most outlandish. But let me know what you guys think there. There's some other options though still. David Reagan announcing his retirement last week means that the 38 car for Front Row Motorsports could very well be open. Well, is open, I guess, at the moment, and I've heard nothing about any obvious front runners for that car. Now, the 38, definitely a downgrade from what DiBenedetto's been racing with Levine, so I doubt that would be Matt DiBenedetto's first choice. But if Toyota really sounds like they don't want to stick with him in the long run, maybe that's his only choice. So worst case, maybe that's his safety net, is going to the 38 team. Now, there's some new rumors this week that suggest Go Fast Racing, that 32 car, might be aligning themselves with Stewart-Haas Racing next season. And that's led to rumors about where Corey LaJoie could end up. Some people say Corey LaJoie is going to stay in that 32 car and it's just going to maybe get a little bit of an equipment boost. But then I've also heard Cole Custer's name thrown around, as in they might put Cole Custer in that 32 car if it becomes aligned with SHR. That could mean Corey LaJoie goes to the 38, because I think Corey LaJoie likely is going to stick around next year. But that would also mean Stewart-Haas Racing is not making any changes to their main lineup, which Kevin Harvick we know is locked in for next year. Almirola with Smithfield money probably around next year as well. Clint Bowyer and Daniel Suarez are the two question marks. I think Suarez, good chance he stays just because Eris does provide a decent amount of funding. Clint Bowyer is the question mark there, especially if he misses the playoffs. I don't know. He might need to take a serious pay cut if he wants to stay with Stewart-Haas next year, so that's a ride that could end up being open. Maybe Custer goes there. Maybe Matt DiBenedetto goes there. You never know. But that's a rumor I've heard. Right now, I think the most likely option for DiBenedetto is that he just has to bite the bullet, spend a year in Xfinity with Gibbs, and then come back up when the Gen 7 is introduced, and hopefully Levine has a second car at that point, and continue basically where he left off this weekend at Bristol. That, I think, is what Matt DiBenedetto's best and option is going to be, but we'll see if it actually becomes an option. It might not become an option. Toyota might not have any plans on expanding Levine Family Racing's stable of cars, but that's a rumor I've heard reported recently that, I don't know, sounds believable to me. But let me know what you guys think. Hopefully Matt DiBenedetto ends up somewhere. He's become a fan favorite, and I think he really deserves a solid opportunity somewhere to showcase what talent he has. Anyway, that's gonna do it for this episode. Last tidbit, because I think this is gonna be my last episode before the weekend, but this weekend at Road America for the Xfinity race, Matt Kenseth will be the Grand Marshal. This is gonna be the first NASCAR related appearance for Kenseth since he stepped away at the end of the 2018 season. He's run a couple late model races in Wisconsin, won the Slinger Nationals earlier this summer, finished 4th at Madison last weekend, so he's still been kind of busy this summer doing some racing stuff, but he's going to be returning to NASCAR, to the NASCAR scene, just for this one weekend as the Grand Marshal. As a Matt Kenseth fan, I look forward to seeing the enthusiasm he brings to the command. Thank you guys for watching. Remember, you can follow me on Twitter, you can follow me on Instagram. Big thank you to my amazing Patreon supporters. Michael Harrison at you is the Stars Mentally Defective, Cameron James, John Koblenz, Jason R. Long, Wesley Donaldson, Isaac Dezen, Mika Suzuki, iFantasyRace.com, TheRacingInsiders.com, Matthew Koulopoulos, Pepe Lucius, Jeremy Conkling, Emilio Garcia, Joey DiMicino, Sky Racing Forums, Bryce Schumacher, and the rest of these amazing Patreon supporters. Thank you all so much for your continued support. I know the show's look might change a little bit for the next few months, but hopefully it's all for the better, and it's really because of you guys. I couldn't keep doing this show, taking it on the road the way I have been, without the support I get from you all on Patreon, so thank you all a ton. Gonna be a crazy end of 2019 for me, both on YouTube, off YouTube. I'll explain it all in due time, but thank you all again for your continued support. Hope you enjoyed. I gotta do a Darlington paint scheme preview video probably early next week, so look out for that. Thanks everyone for the support as always. Love you all. See you again very soon. Bye-bye.